bond shattered at midnight. Seren felt it like a blade through her chest. Cold, precise, final. One moment she was whole. The next, something inside her was ripping apart, thread by thread, as if her very soul was being torn from her body. She knew what it meant. Every wolf knew. Her mate had chosen another. Through the agony, through the tears streaming down her face, she felt it all. The sacred words being spoken. The new bond forming. A woman's presence wrapping around the place in his heart that had belonged to Seren. Alpha King Fenrik of Valdris, the man who had sworn to love her until the mountains crumbled, was claiming someone else. So Seren ran. She vanished into the night, leaving behind the palace, the crown that should have been hers, and the man she had loved more than her own life. She left no note, no explanation, no goodbye. Let him have his new queen. She would rather die in exile than watch. But Seren didn't know the truth. She didn't know that the bond she felt breaking was a lie, woven by dark magic. She didn't know that the man she loved was screaming her name even now, fighting against chains he couldn't see. And she didn't know that when Fenrik discovered what had been done, when he realized she was gone, he would burn his own kingdom to the ground to find her. He would betray his pack, slaughter his council, break every law his bloodline had ever written. Because some bonds, once forged, cannot be replaced. And some kings, when they lose what matters most, become monsters. The ceremony was supposed to be a formality. Seren stood in their private chambers, brushing her hair before the mirror, waiting for Fenrik to return. The lunar rite was an ancient tradition, a reaffirmation of alliances, nothing more. He would stand before the pack elders, accept their blessings, and come back to her within the hour. He had kissed her forehead before leaving. "I'll be quick," he'd promised. "Keep the bed warm." She had laughed, swatting his chest. "You say that every time." And I mean it every time. His scent still lingered on her skin, pine and wood smoke and something uniquely him. The scent of home, the scent of safety. After 2 years as his bonded mate, Seren still couldn't believe her fortune. A lowborn Omega chosen by an Alpha King. The scandal had nearly torn the kingdom apart. But Fenrik hadn't cared. He had looked at her, truly looked at her, and said, "You're mine. Nothing else matters." And Seren had believed him. She was still brushing her hair when the first tremor hit. It started small, a flicker in her chest, like a candle caught in a draft. She paused, frowning. The bond between mates was a constant hum, a warmth that lived beneath her ribs. But this felt different. Cold. Seren set down the brush. The second tremor was worse. A crack, deep inside her, spreading outward like ice across a frozen lake. She gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "Fenrik?" No response. Only silence where his presence should have been. And then the bond exploded. Seren screamed. She collapsed to her knees, clutching at her chest as agony unlike anything she had ever known tore through her. It felt like dying. It felt like being unmade. Past the pain, past the roaring in her ears, she felt it. Another woman. A presence sliding into the bond, wrapping around the threads that connected Seren to her mate. Foreign. Wrong. Taking root where Seren had lived for 2 years. Sacred words echoed through the connection. Ancient vows, binding vows, the kind that could only be spoken when an alpha claimed a new mate. "I take you as mine, my queen, my bond, my eternal." Fenrik's voice, his words, but not to her. Serene's vision blurred with tears. No, this couldn't be happening. This wasn't possible. He loved her. He had chosen her. He had... The bond snapped. Clean. Complete. Final. Where Fenrik's presence had once burned warm and constant, there was now only emptiness, a void, a wound that would never heal. Seren knelt on the floor of their chambers, shaking, gasping for breath that wouldn't come. He chose someone else. Her mind couldn't process it. Her heart refused to believe it. But her wolf knew. The bond was gone. Replaced. She had been cast aside. The door to the chambers opened. Seren looked up, desperately hoping to see him, hoping this was a nightmare, hoping. But it wasn't Fenrik. It was Varin, the king's chief advisor. An elderly wolf with cold eyes and a colder smile. "My lady," he said smoothly, "I see you felt the news." Seren stared at him, unable to speak. "The king has taken Nerissa as his bonded queen. The ceremony concluded moments ago." Varin's smile widened, showing too many teeth. "You understand, of course. A king cannot be bound to an omega of no standing. The pact demanded a proper queen." And King Fenrik agreed. Lies. This had to be lies, but the emptiness in her chest screamed otherwise. "You have until dawn to leave the palace," Varin continued, his voice sickeningly pleasant. "The king requests discretion, for everyone's sake." He turned and left, closing the door softly behind him. Seren knelt there in the silence, in the darkness, in the ruins of everything she had believed. And then she stood. She didn't weep. She didn't rage. She simply moved, grabbing a cloak, a small purse of coins, the dagger Fenrik had given her on their first anniversary. She took nothing else. She wanted nothing else. At the window she paused. The palace stretched below her, glittering with torchlight. Somewhere in those halls, in that throne room, he was with another woman now, speaking vows to another woman, touching another woman. Seren pressed her hand to her stomach, where a secret grew that she had planned to tell him tonight. Now, he would never know. She climbed out the window and disappeared into the night. 3 weeks later, Seren still hadn't stopped running. The village of Merowan was small enough to be forgotten, tucked into the mountains at the far eastern edge of the continent. No pack territory claimed it. No king's laws reached it. It was a place for those who wanted to disappear. Seren had become very good at disappearing. She rented a room above a tavern, paying the innkeeper in coins and silence. The woman asked no questions. In Merowan, questions were bad for business. During the day, Seren worked in the tavern kitchen, chopping vegetables, scrubbing pots, keeping her head down. At night, she lay in her narrow bed and stared at the ceiling, trying not to feel the hollow space where her bond used to live. It hadn't stopped hurting. The healers said it would fade. That was what everyone said when a bond was severed. Time heals. The pain lessens. Eventually, you'll feel whole again. They were liars. All of them. Every morning, Seren woke reaching for him. Every night, she fell asleep with his name on her lips. The absence of him was a constant ache, a phantom limb that throbbed with every heartbeat. And the worst part, the cruelest part, was that she still loved him, even now, even after everything. Some pathetic, broken piece of her heart still belonged to Fenrik, and she hated herself for it. "You're going to burn those onions." Seren blinked, jerking back to awareness. The tavern owner, a stout woman named Birch, was watching her with shrewd eyes. Sorry." Seren quickly stirred the pot. "I was distracted." "You're always distracted." Birch leaned against the counter, arms crossed. 3 weeks you've been here. 3 weeks of that same look on your face. Like someone carved out your heart and forgot to kill you first." Seren said nothing. "Man trouble," Birch concluded. It wasn't a question. "Something like that." "Bonded?" Seren's hand stilled on the spoon. "Once." Birch made a sympathetic sound. "Severed bonds are the worst. Nothing hurts quite like that." She paused. "He leave you? Or did he die?" "He chose someone else." The words tasted like ash. Saying them aloud made them real in a way Serene had been avoiding. Birch's expression shifted. hardening with something that might have been anger. Then he's a fool. Any wolf with eyes could see your quality, girl. Whoever he picked instead, I hope she makes his life miserable. Despite everything, Seren almost smiled. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just don't burn my onions. Seren returned to her work, but her mind drifted again, back to Valdris, back to the palace, back to him. Did he think about her at all? Did he wonder where she had gone? Or had she already been erased from his memory, replaced by the woman who now wore her crown? Nerissa. Seren didn't know much about her. A noble's daughter, high-born and beautiful, everything Seren had never been. The pack had probably celebrated the new queen. Finally, a proper match for their king. Finally, someone worthy. Seren's hand drifted to her stomach. The baby was still just a flutter, a presence she felt more than anything else. In a few months, the signs would be impossible to hide. But for now, it was her secret. The last piece of Fenrik she had left. He would never know. That was the cruelest irony of all. The heir he had always wanted. The child they had dreamed about together. And he would never know it existed. Sometimes, late at night, Seren imagined going back. Imagined standing before him with the evidence of their love swelling beneath her dress. Imagine the look on his face when he realized what he had thrown away. But then she remembered the bond snapping. Remembered feeling another woman take her place. Remembered the cold finality of it. He had made his choice. Now she had to live with it. The tavern door crashed open. Seren looked up as 3 men stumbled in. Travelers by the look of them, dusty from the road. They called for ale and collapsed at a corner table, voices loud and boisterous. She tried to ignore them. Customers came and went. It was none of her concern. But then one of them said a name that made her blood freeze. Alpha King Fenrik has lost his mind. That's what they're saying. Seren's hand tightened on the spoon. Another man laughed. Lost his mind? The man's tearing his own kingdom apart. Threw 3 council members into the dungeons last week. Executed his own advisor. Varen. The very same. Had him dragged from his bed in the middle of the night and put a sword through his chest personally. Seren couldn't breathe. What set him off? The third man asked. Who knows? Some say it's the new queen. Some say she's actually a prisoner now, locked in the North Tower. The whole palace is in chaos. And the king. The man leaned closer, lowering his voice. They say he doesn't sleep, doesn't eat. Just paces the halls like a madman, screaming one name over and over. What name? Seren's breath seized in her lungs. Seren. He's looking for someone called Seren. 2 weeks earlier, Valdris Palace Fenrik woke to screaming. It took him a moment to realize the screaming was his own. He was on the floor of the throne room, his body convulsing, his hands clawing at the stone. Pain, unlike anything he had ever known, was ripping through his chest, a tearing, burning agony that felt like his soul was being shredded. The bond, he gasped. Something's wrong with the bond. Your Majesty, please remain calm. Hands grabbed him, trying to hold him down. Faces swam above him. Council members, guards. Varen's cold smile hovering at the edge of his vision. Where is Seren? Fenrik snarled. Where is my mate? Silence. The wrong kind of silence. Fenrik forced himself upright, shoving away the hands that reached for him. His wolf was howling inside his skull, clawing for dominance, sensing something catastrophically wrong. Where? He said, his voice dropping to a register that made the entire room flinch. Is my wife? Varen stepped forward, that serpentine smile firmly in place. Your Majesty, I'm afraid there's been a development. Speak. During the lunar rite, the Pack Elders determined that your bond to the Omega Seren was unsuitable. For the good of the kingdom, a new bond was required. A proper queen. Varen gestured, and from behind a pillar, a woman emerged. Nerissa. She was beautiful in a cold, sculpted way. High cheekbones, pale hair, eyes like chips of ice. She curtsied deeply before him. "My king," she said, "my mate." Fenrik stared at her. Then he looked down at his hands, at the faint, foreign tingle that hummed beneath his skin. A bond. But not his bond. Not Seren's warmth and light and home. Something wrong, something forced. "What have you done?" His voice was barely human. Varen's smile faltered. "Your Majesty, this was for the best. The Omega was beneath you. The pact demanded—" "I didn't ask what the pact demanded." The roar shook the walls. Windows rattled. Guards stumbled backward, hands flying to their weapons. Fenrik grabbed Varen by the throat and lifted him off the ground with one hand. "What," he said, each word dripping with murder, "have you done to my bond?" Varen clawed at his wrist, choking. "Ancient, magic, the elders, we severed. You severed my bond to Seren? She's just an Omega. She is my heart." Fenrik threw Varen across the room. The advisor crashed into a pillar and crumpled like a broken doll. The room erupted into chaos. Guards rushed forward. Council members shouted. Nerissa screamed something he didn't hear, but Fenrik was already moving, running through the palace corridors, following the ghost of a scent that grew fainter with every step. Their chambers. She would be in their chambers. He burst through the door so hard the hinges shattered. Empty. The room was empty. Her brush lay abandoned on the floor. The window was open, curtains drifting in the cold night air. And her scent, her beautiful, perfect scent, was already fading. Gone. She was gone. Fenrik stood in the center of the room that still smelled like her, that still held the ghost of her laughter, and something inside him cracked. "No." His voice broke. "No. No, no." He searched the room, tore apart drawers and closets, checked every corner, every shadow, and every impossible hiding place. Nothing. She had taken almost nothing. Just a cloak, some coins, the dagger he had given her. She had left everything else behind. Every gift, every jewel, every piece of their life together, because she thought he had abandoned her. The realization hit him like a physical blow. She had felt the bond sever. She had felt another woman take her place. She thought he had chosen Nerissa. She thought he didn't love her anymore. "Qui Seren!" Her name tore from his throat, raw and desperate and anguished. He screamed it into the empty room, into the cold night, into the void where she should have been. No answer came. Fenrik sank to his knees, clutching the brush she had left behind, her scent still clinging to the bristles. His wolf was howling, clawing, demanding he find her, bring her back, make this right. But she could be anywhere. She could be miles away by now. And the bond that should have led him straight to her, was gone, replaced by a cold, artificial thread that connected him to a woman he had never wanted. Behind him, footsteps approached. "Your Majesty." It was Corvin, his beta, one of the few wolves he still trusted. "The council is demanding answers. They want to know—" "Seal the borders." Corvin paused. "Sire?" Fenrik rose, turning slowly. His eyes had shifted, no longer fully human, glowing with the amber light of his wolf. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of mountains. "Seal every border. Close every gate. No one leaves this kingdom until I find her." "The council won't allow—" "The council," Fenrik said, "just committed treason against their king. Anyone who helped sever my bond dies tonight. Anyone who knew dies tomorrow. And anyone who stands between me and finding Seren." He stepped closer to Corvin, and even his most loyal beta took a step back. "Will wish they had never been born." Corvin's face went pale. "Fenrik." Think about what you're doing. You're talking about turning against your own pack. They turned against me first. Fenrik's voice dropped to a whisper. They took her from me, Corvin. They made her believe I didn't want her. They made her run. We'll find her. There are other ways? There are no other ways. There is only her. Fenrik walked past his beta toward the door, toward the throne room, toward the wolves who had dared to touch what was his. Gather the loyal, arrest the traitors, and send word to every corner of this continent. He paused at the threshold. The Alpha King is hunting, and he will tear apart anyone, pack, council, kingdom, who stands in his way. Within hours, the dungeons were full. Within days, the first executions began. And across the mountains, 3 weeks and 1,000 miles away, Siren heard his name spoken in a tavern and realized that running might not have been enough, because the wolf who had broken her heart was coming, and he would burn the world to find her. The border town of Cathras burned. Not literally. Fenrik hadn't given that order yet, but the chaos was almost as destructive. Royal soldiers swarmed the streets, searching every building, questioning every citizen, turning the peaceful trading post into a militarized nightmare. Fenrik stood at the center of it all, his presence alone enough to make grown wolves cower. She passed through here. He held up a strip of fabric, torn from a cloak, still carrying the faintest trace of her scent. 3 weeks ago, someone saw her. Someone helped her. The town mayor, a trembling beta named Josric, shook his head frantically. Your Majesty, we have hundreds of travelers passing through daily. We can't possibly. Then you'll search your records. Every inn, every stable, every merchant who sold supplies. Fenrik's eyes blazed amber. Someone remembers a woman traveling alone. An Omega. Beautiful. Dark hair. Gray eyes. Sire, even if we find records, she could be anywhere by now. Then I'll search everywhere. Corvin appeared at his side, looking exhausted. 3 weeks of this relentless hunt had worn them all thin. But none more than Fenrik himself, who hadn't slept more than an hour at a time since she vanished. We found something, Corvin said quietly. A stable hand remembers a woman matching her description. She bought a horse heading east. East, toward the mountain territories, toward the lawless regions where pack authority meant nothing. Smart. His Siren was so devastatingly smart. How long? Fenrik demanded. She had a 2-week head start, but she was traveling slow, conserving coin. Corvin hesitated. There's something else. Fenrik turned fully toward his beta. Speak. The stable hand said she looked unwell. Pale, like she hadn't been eating properly. Corvin's voice dropped. He thought she might be ill, or what? Corvin wouldn't meet his eyes. Or with child. The world stopped. Fenrik couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stand there as those words rearranged everything he thought he knew. With child. Siren had been trying to tell him something before the lunar rite. He remembered now, the way she'd smiled, nervous and excited, saying she had news. The way she'd touched her stomach when she thought he wasn't looking. She had been pregnant. She might still be pregnant. And she had run, alone, heartbroken, believing he had abandoned her, carrying his child. Fenrik. Corvin's hand gripped his shoulder. Stay with me. She's pregnant. His voice sounded foreign to his own ears. She's out there, alone, pregnant with my heir, thinking I don't want her. We'll find her. You're right. We will. Fenrik's expression hardened into something terrifying. Double the search parties, triple them. I want every village between here and the eastern mountains searched. Every inn, every farm, every cave if we have to. The pack won't support this level of resources for much longer, Corvin warned. The elders who survived the purge are already whispering about your fitness to rule. They say the false bond is affecting your judgment. The false bond. Fenrik could feel it like a parasite. Nerissa's presence coiled in the back of his mind, cold and wrong and unwanted. The magic that had forced it into existence was powerful, but unstable. It demanded consummation to solidify. Every day he refused her, the bond weakened, but it also weakened him. The severing of his true bond to Seren had left a wound that wouldn't heal. Adding this artificial connection on top of it was like pouring salt into that wound daily. His wolf was in constant agony, torn between two bonds, one dead and mourned, one alive and hated. My judgment is the only thing keeping this kingdom standing, Fenrik said flatly. The elders committed treason. They tore out my heart and expected me to thank them for it. Anyone who questions my methods is welcome to join them in the dungeons. And Nerissa? Fenrik's lip curled. What about her? She claims she was forced into this as well, that the elders threatened her family if she didn't cooperate. Corvin's tone was careful. She's been cooperative since her imprisonment. Perhaps she knows something useful. For a long moment, Fenrik considered it. He hated Nerissa. The mere thought of her made his wolf snarl with fury. But Corvin was right. She had been in the center of this conspiracy. She might know details the elders had kept hidden. Bring her to me, he said finally. And Corvin? Yes? If she lies to me, even once, I'll let my wolf handle the interrogation. Corvin nodded and disappeared. Fenrik turned back to the town, to the search, to the impossible task of finding one woman in an entire continent. But she wasn't just one woman. She was everything. The only thing that had ever made his crown worth wearing. He would find her. And when he did, he would spend the rest of his life proving that she had never been abandoned, that the bond they shared was real, even if magic had tried to destroy it, that she was, and would always be, his true queen. The hunt continued. 2 years earlier, the forest of Valdris. The first time Fenrik saw Seren, she was standing in a river, trying to save a drowning pup. He had been hunting alone that day, a rare indulgence for a king constantly surrounded by guards and advisors. The forest was his sanctuary, the one place he could shed the weight of his crown and simply be a wolf. He had heard the splashing first, then the screaming. By the time he reached the riverbank, a young Omega woman was waist-deep in the rushing current, fighting to reach a pup being swept toward the rapids. The child's mother was howling from the shore, too weak to fight the water herself. Without thinking, Fenrik shifted and dove in. The current was brutal. The water was ice-cold from mountain runoff. But he reached the pup first, grabbing the child by the scruff and hauling him toward the bank. When he looked up, the Omega was struggling. The same current that had taken the pup was now pulling her under. Her head disappeared beneath the surface, came up, went under again. Fenrik shoved the pup toward his mother and turned back. He reached the Omega just as she went under for the third time. His jaws closed around her arm, gently, carefully, and he dragged her to shore. She coughed up water, gasping and shaking, but alive. And then she looked at him. Gray eyes, the color of storm clouds and steel and everything fierce. They met his wolf's gaze without flinching, without the submission most Omegas showed to alphas. Thank you, she said simply once she could breathe. For saving him. For saving me. Fenrik shifted back to human form, not caring that he was naked and dripping. Modesty meant nothing compared to this moment, this woman, this impossible pull he felt toward a stranger he had known for 30 seconds. What's your name? His voice came out rougher than intended. Seren. She wrung water from her dark hair. And you are? She didn't know. She genuinely didn't know who he was. In that moment, Fenrik made a decision that would change everything. Fenrik, he said. Just Fenrik. No title. No crown. Are you hurt? Only my pride. She almost smiled. I was supposed to be rescuing him, not the other way around. You went into that current for a pup who wasn't yours. Most wolves wouldn't have bothered. Most wolves are disappointing. He laughed. Actually laughed, and couldn't remember the last time he'd done that. Will you let me walk you home? He asked. Make sure you're truly all right? Seren studied him for a long moment. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her, because she nodded. My cottage isn't far, but I should warn you. I have nothing to offer a guest except tea and a warm fire. That sounds perfect. They walked through the forest together, and Fenrik learned that Seren was a healer's apprentice who lived alone since her mother's death, that she had no pack ties, no family, no prospects for a proper mating, that she spent her days gathering herbs and her nights reading books she could barely afford. She was nobody, an omega of no standing, no bloodline, no value in the eyes of society. And Fenrik was utterly, completely, devastatingly lost. He came back the next day, and the next, and the next. He told himself it was because she was interesting, because conversations with her were more stimulating than any council meeting, because she challenged him in ways no one else dared. But the truth was simpler and more terrifying. He was falling in love. The day his advisors discovered the relationship, the palace nearly collapsed into civil war. An omega? Varan had spat, pacing the throne room. A nobody from the woods? Your Majesty, you cannot be serious. I am entirely serious. Fenrik sat on his throne, calm as still water. I intend to make her my bonded queen. The pack will never accept her. The other kingdoms will laugh. Your bloodline. My bloodline will continue through her, and that is final. Fenrik's eyes flashed. I don't require your acceptance, Varen. I require your obedience. The bonding ceremony had been small, private, perfect. They stood beneath the full moon in the same forest where they had met, with only Corvin as witness. Seren wore a simple white dress. Fenrik wore his heart on his sleeve. I claim you as mine, he said, his voice thick with emotion. My mate, my heart, my home. Wherever you go, I follow. Whatever you face, I face beside you. Until the stars fall from the sky and the mountains crumble to dust. Seren's eyes were bright with tears. I claim you as mine. Not your crown. Not your kingdom. You. The man who jumped into a river for a stranger. The man who sees me, truly sees me, when the rest of the world looks through me. The bond snapped into place like a key turning in a lock, and Fenrik finally understood what it meant to be complete. Present day. Valdris Palace. The memory faded, and Fenrik found himself standing in their empty chambers again. He came here every night, stood where she had stood, breathed air that no longer carried her scent, tortured himself with memories of what he had lost. I'm coming, Seren, he whispered to the darkness. I swear on every star in the sky, I'm coming for you. Just hold on a little longer. Somewhere across the mountains, he prayed she could feel him. Even with the bond shattered, even with magic standing between them, surely some part of her still knew the truth. Surely some part of her still believed in him. The dungeon beneath Valdris Palace had never held so many prisoners. Fenrik walked past the cells slowly, letting his presence sink into every shivering soul behind the iron bars. Council members, elder wolves, nobles who had thought themselves untouchable. All of them had played a part in the conspiracy against his bond. All of them would answer for it. At the end of the corridor, in a cell separated from the others, sat the woman at the center of it all. Nerissa looked nothing like the polished noble who had stood before him 3 weeks ago. Her pale hair was tangled, her fine clothes were ruined, and her eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, were filled with something that might have been genuine terror. Good. Leave us, Fenrik commanded the guards. They obeyed instantly, their footsteps echoing away until silence swallowed the dungeon. Fenrik stepped closer to the bars. "You said you were forced into this." Nerissa scrambled to her feet. "I was, Your Majesty, I swear it. Varen came to my family with threats. He said if I didn't participate, he would destroy my father, my brothers, everything we had. And you expect me to believe you had no choice? I had no good choices." Tears streamed down her face. "But I never wanted this. I never wanted to be bonded to a man who could never love me. I just wanted to survive." Fenrik studied her in silence. His wolf wanted to rip her apart. She was the foreign presence in his bond, the usurper who had taken Seren's place even if she hadn't asked for it. Every instinct screamed to eliminate the threat. But beneath the rage, some rational part of him recognized the truth in her words. Nerissa was a pawn, a tool used by the real architects of this conspiracy. Destroying her wouldn't bring Seren back. "Tell me everything," he said finally. "Every detail of how this was done, who planned it, what magic they used. Everything." Nerissa nodded frantically. "It started months ago. Varen approached the Elder Council with concerns about your Omega Queen. They said she was weakening the bloodline, making the pack vulnerable. They convinced each other that removing her was necessary for the kingdom's survival." "Removing her how?" "There's an ancient ritual. Blood magic. It requires the original bondmate to be present, but unconscious." Nerissa's voice trembled. "During the lunar rite, they drugged your wine. While you were incapacitated, they severed your bond to Seren and created a new one to me." Fenrik's hands clenched into fists. "I would have felt it. I would have fought. They had a witch, a powerful one. She suppressed your wolf, kept you docile while they worked." Nerissa shook her head. "By the time you woke, it was done. The false bond was already taking root." "A witch. Who?" "I don't know her name. Varen kept her identity secret. But she's still in the palace." Nerissa's eyes widened. "Your Majesty, she's been here the whole time, maintaining the false bond from the shadows. If you find her, you might be able to reverse what was done." Hope, dangerous, fragile hope, flickered in Fenrik's chest. "If the bond can be reversed, then your true bond might be restored." Nerissa actually looked relieved. "Find the witch. Break her spell. You could have your real queen back." Fenrik was already turning away, his mind racing. But Nerissa's voice stopped him. "Your Majesty, there's something else you should know." He turned back. "What?" "Varen wasn't working alone in the council. Before you executed him, he sent messages to the outer packs, lords who supported the conspiracy." Nerissa swallowed hard. "They're not going to let you find Seren and restore her. They're going to make sure she never comes home." Ice flooded Fenrik's veins. "What do you mean?" "I overheard them talking, before everything fell apart. They said if she ran, they would send hunters. Wolves who specialize in permanent solutions." Nerissa's voice dropped to a whisper. "They've already dispatched assassins, Your Majesty. They're going to kill her before you can reach her." The dungeon went silent. Fenrik stood perfectly still, processing what he had just heard. Assassins, sent after Seren. After his pregnant, heartbroken, defenseless mate who thought she was simply running from a broken heart. She wasn't running from heartbreak anymore. She was running for her life. And she didn't even know it. The last thread of restraint holding Fenrik together severed completely. Not his sanity. That had been fraying for weeks. This was something deeper. Something more primal. The final barrier that had kept him tethered to civilization, to duty, to anything resembling a king's composure. It was gone. "Corvin!" His roar shook the dungeon walls. His beta appeared within seconds, breathless and alarmed. "Gather every loyal wolf we have," Fenrik commanded. "Not soldiers, hunters, the best trackers in the kingdom. We leave within the hour." "Where are we going?" "East. to the mountains, to find her before the assassins do. Fenrik's eyes were fully wolf now, glowing like molten gold. And Corvin? Anyone who tries to stop us, pack member, council lord, I don't care, dies where they stand. Corvin hesitated. Fenrik, this is war. You're declaring war on your own people. They declared war on me first, Fenrik snarled. They stole my mate. They tried to destroy my bond. And now they're hunting the mother of my child like an animal. He stepped closer to Corvin, and even his most trusted friend flinched at the fury radiating from him. Let them see what happens when you take everything from a king, Fenrik said softly. Let them understand that there is no line I won't cross, no law I won't break, and no life I won't take to bring her home. And if the pack turns against you completely? Fenrik smiled, a terrible wolf smile. Then I'll build a new pack from the ashes of this one. He strode out of the dungeon, leaving Nerissa trembling in her cell and Corvin staring after him with something between admiration and horror. Within the hour, the hunting party rode out of Valderis. They headed east, toward the mountains, toward the lawless territories where Seren had fled. And behind them, the kingdom they left began to tear itself apart. Half loyal to their maddened king, half convinced he had become the very monster they needed protection from. But Fenrik didn't care. Let them call him monster. Let them call him tyrant. Let them call him anything they wanted. He would save Seren. He would kill anyone who stood in his way. And when this was over, when she was safe in his arms again, he would make every single wolf who had conspired against them beg for a death they would not receive. The hunt was no longer just a search. It was a reckoning. The assassins found her first. Seren had just finished her shift at the tavern, climbing the narrow stairs to her room when she felt them. 3 distinct presences, wolf-strong and predator-sharp, waiting in the shadows of her tiny sanctuary. She froze on the top step. "Don't bother running," a voice said from inside. "We've been watching you for 2 days. We know every exit." Seren's hand went to the dagger at her hip, Fenrik's dagger, the only piece of him she had kept. Her pulse thundered in her ears, but she forced her voice steady. "Who sent you?" The door swung open. A massive wolf filled the frame, scarred and brutal, with eyes that held no mercy. Behind him, 2 more killers flanked the room's small window. "The remaining council loyalists send their regards," the scarred wolf said. "You've caused quite the mess, little Omega. The king's gone mad looking for you. Half the kingdom wants him dead. The other half wants you dead even more." "I haven't done anything." "You exist. That's enough." He stepped closer. "The king won't stop until he finds you. So we're going to make sure there's nothing left to find." Seren's wolf surged inside her, not with power, but with desperation. She couldn't fight 3 trained killers. She couldn't outrun them. But she could not, would not let them take her child. "Please." The word tore from her throat. "I'm pregnant. Whatever quarrel you have with me, the baby is innocent." Something flickered across the scarred wolf's face. Surprise, maybe. Or calculation. "Pregnant with the king's heir?" He laughed, a cruel sound. "That makes you more dangerous, not less. A bastard child to challenge whatever bloodline the council installs after Fenrik falls?" He shook his head. "No. You both die tonight." He lunged. Seren moved on instinct, ducking under his grab, slashing with her dagger, catching him across the forearm. He howled in fury and backhanded her across the face. She hit the wall hard. Stars exploded across her vision. She heard rather than saw the other 2 closing in, felt hands grabbing her arms, slamming her to the ground. "Hold her still. Make it quick. We're already behind schedule." The window exploded inward. Glass and wood shattered as something massive crashed through, shifting midair from wolf to man, hitting the ground in a crouch that radiated pure, concentrated death. Fenrik. Seren's heart stopped. He looked like a nightmare brought to life. blood already streaked his face, not his own. His eyes blazed full amber, his wolf riding so close to the surface that his features seemed caught between forms. And his scent. His scent was rage and violence and something so desperately anguished that Seren wanted to weep. "Get away from her," he said. The words were barely human. The scarred assassin recovered first, releasing Seren and spinning toward the new threat. "Kill him! Kill him now!" They moved. Fenrik moved faster. What happened next would haunt Seren for the rest of her life. Not because it was horrible, though it was, but because some broken part of her found it beautiful. Fenrik didn't fight like a king. He fought like an animal protecting its mate. Every strike was lethal. Every movement was calculated to destroy. The first assassin died before he could raise his blade. The second managed a single swing before Fenrik's claws opened his throat. The scarred wolf lasted longest, nearly 10 seconds, before Fenrik slammed him against the wall and held him there, suspended, choking. "Who sent you?" Fenrik demanded. "The council." "Which members?" "Names." The assassin laughed through bloodied teeth. "Does it matter? You're already dead. The whole kingdom is turning against you. You can't protect her and hold your throne. Watch me." Fenrik's claws punched through the assassin's chest. The wolf shuddered once and went still. Silence fell. Seren lay on the floor, trembling, staring at the man she had loved, the man she still loved, standing amid the bodies of wolves who had come to murder her. He was covered in blood. His chest heaved with each breath, and his eyes, when they finally turned to her, held something so raw and broken that she forgot how to speak. Seren. Her name. Just her name. But he said it like a prayer, like a lifeline, like the only word that mattered in any language. "You found me," she whispered. "I will always find you." He moved toward her slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal. "Always, across any distance, through any obstacle. There is nowhere you can run that I won't follow." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You chose her. I felt it. The bond was forced, stolen. I never chose anyone but you." He dropped to his knees before her, his bloodied hands hovering, not quite touching. "They drugged me during the lunar rite, used blood magic to sever our bond and create a false one. I woke up screaming your name, and you were already gone." "No." She shook her head. "No, I felt it. I felt another woman in our bond. Magic. Dark magic wielded by traitors who thought they could control me." His voice cracked. "I executed every elder who participated, threw half the council in the dungeons, turned my own pack inside out looking for you. I have done terrible things, Seren, unforgivable things, and I would do them all again if it meant finding you." She stared at him. This beautiful, broken king who had shattered his own kingdom to reach her. "The bond is gone," she said softly. "I can't feel you anymore." "I know." Pain etched every line of his face, but there's a way to restore it. A witch created the false bond. She can unmake it. Once that connection is severed, our true bond might resurface. We can be whole again. And if it doesn't work? Fenrik reached out finally and cupped her face in his bloodied hands. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life earning the right to stand beside you anyway. Bond or no bond, you are my mate. My heart. My home." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "I love you, Seren. I never stopped. I never will." She broke. 3 weeks of grief and heartbreak and desperate loneliness crashed through her walls, and she collapsed into his arms, sobbing against his chest while he held her, like she was the only thing keeping him alive. "I thought you didn't want me," she gasped between sobs. "I thought you finally realized I wasn't enough. You are everything. Everything." He pressed his lips to her hair, her forehead, her tears. "I would burn every kingdom on this continent to ash before I let anyone tell me otherwise." They held each other in that blood-soaked room, surrounded by death, and somehow found peace. Then Seren remembered. She pulled back slightly, taking his hand and pressing it against her stomach. Fenrik, there's something you need to know. He went still. That night, before the lunar rite, she continued, I was going to tell you. I'd just found out that morning. She watched his face as understanding dawned. I'm carrying your child. For a long moment, Fenrik didn't move, didn't breathe. Then his hand pressed more firmly against her belly, and his entire expression transformed. The rage melted away. The anguish softened. What remained was wonder. Pure, overwhelming wonder. A child, he breathed. Our child. Yes. You've been alone this whole time, pregnant and alone and thinking I abandoned you. His voice shattered. Seren, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. You're here now. She covered his hand with hers. That's what matters. He kissed her then. Gentle and desperate and full of every emotion words couldn't hold. She tasted salt from both their tears and copper from blood, and somehow it was still the sweetest kiss of her life. When they finally broke apart, reality intruded. We have to move, Fenrik said reluctantly. These weren't the only assassins the council sent. There will be more. Where do we go? Back to Valdris. There's still a witch to find, and a false bond to destroy. He helped her to her feet, keeping her close. But this time, you're not running alone. This time, we face everything together. Seren looked at the carnage around them, at the blood on his hands, at the fierce protective fury still simmering in his eyes. Together, she agreed. They climbed out the shattered window into the night, where Corvin and a dozen loyal wolves waited with horses. The journey home had begun. They rode through the night and the next day, stopping only to rest the horses. Seren learned what had happened in her absence, the executions, the imprisonments, the near civil war that had erupted when their king chose his missing mate over his own pack's demands. She listened with growing horror and a strange, fierce pride. He had dismantled everything for her, risked everything. They hate you now, she said quietly as they rode side by side. Your own people. Some do. Others understand. Fenrik's jaw tightened. The wolves who condemned our bond were never truly my people. They wanted a king they could control, and I refused to be controlled. What happens when we return? We find the witch, break her spell, restore our bond. His eyes met hers. Then we rebuild, together. Valdris appeared on the horizon as the sun set, a dark silhouette against the burning sky. Even from a distance, Seren could sense the tension. The kingdom was holding its breath. They entered through the eastern gate, flanked by Corvin's wolves. Servants and guards alike stopped to stare as their king returned with his lost queen riding beside him. The whispers started immediately. That's her, the Omega. She's alive? Look at the king's face. He's different. Is she truly pregnant? Seren kept her chin high, refusing to show weakness. These people had participated in her destruction, or at least allowed it to happen. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her cower. Fenrik led her directly to the throne room, where a small group waited. Corvin's most trusted wolves, a handful of servants who had proven loyal, and in the corner, still under guard, Nerissa. The false queen looked even worse than before. Whatever magic maintained the artificial bond was clearly taking its toll on her as well. Her skin was sallow, her eyes hollow. You found her, Nerissa said, something like relief in her voice. Thank the gods. Where is the witch? Fenrik demanded without preamble. Nerissa hesitated. I told you I don't know her name, but she's been staying in the old servant quarters in the East Wing. Varen set her up there before you. She swallowed. Before. Fenrik turned to Corvin. Search the East Wing, every room. Bring me anyone you find. As Corvin departed with a squad of wolves, Seren studied Nerissa, the woman who had taken her place, however unwillingly, the false queen who had worn her crown. You really didn't want this, Seren said. It wasn't a question. Nerissa laughed bitterly. I wanted to survive. That's all. Varen made it clear what would happen to my family if I refused. Her eyes met Serene's. I know you have every reason to hate me, but I never wanted your mate. I never wanted any of this. Then help us end it. I'll tell you everything I know. Nerissa straightened slightly. But there's something I haven't told the king yet. Something I only just remembered. Fenrik's attention snapped to her. What? The witch who created the false bond. I saw her face once, briefly, before the ceremony. I didn't recognize her then, but lately I've been thinking. Nerissa's voice dropped. She looked familiar, like someone from the palace. Someone from the palace? Seren frowned. A servant? No. Higher than that. Nerissa closed her eyes, concentrating. The way she moved? The way she spoke to Varen as an equal rather than a subordinate. I think she was nobility. Someone who had access to the inner circles. Before anyone could respond, the throne room doors burst open. Corvin strode in, dragging a figure in chains. The woman fought every step, snarling and spitting, her fine clothes torn and her elegant hair wild. Serene's blood turned to ice. She knew that face. Lady Morgwyn, Fenrik said, his voice deadly quiet. My mother's cousin. My own family. Morgwyn stopped fighting. She drew herself up with tattered dignity, her eyes blazing with defiance. Don't look so surprised, nephew. Did you really think you could disgrace our bloodline with that Omega trash and face no consequences? You did this. Fenrik advanced on her slowly. You created the false bond. You helped sever my connection to my true mate. I did what was necessary, what your father should have done years ago, protected the purity of our line. Morgwyn's lip curled as she looked at Seren. An Omega, with no family, no standing, no worth. Carrying the heir to Valdris in her common belly. It's an abomination. She is my wife. She is a mistake, one I intended to correct. Morgwyn smiled coldly. The false bond was just the beginning. Once you consummated it with Nerissa, the magic would have been permanent. Your little Omega would have been forgotten, but you refused. You clung to something that no longer existed like a lovesick pup. And the assassins? Seren demanded. That was you as well? A contingency. Varen's council allies arranged the killers, but I suggested the necessity. Morgwyn shrugged. You should have died in that tavern. It would have been cleaner. Fenrik's hand closed around her throat. Give me one reason, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Why I shouldn't kill you where you stand. Because only I can undo what I've done. Morgwyn's smile didn't waver, even as his grip tightened. The false bond is tied to my blood magic. My life force. Kill me now, and the magic dies with me, but so does any chance of restoring what was lost. You'll be bonded to Nerissa forever, and your precious Omega will remain severed from you for the rest of her life. Fenrik's grip trembled with the effort of not crushing her windpipe. You're lying. Am I? Are you willing to gamble your bond on it? Silence stretched through the throne room. Seren stepped forward, placing her hand on Fenrik's arm. Let her speak. Seren, if she can restore our bond, we need her alive, at least for now. Seren met Morgwyn's hateful gaze without flinching. Tell us what you need to undo the magic. Morgwyn rubbed her throat as Fenrik reluctantly released her. It requires a reversal ritual. Blood from both false bonded parties, willingly given. Blood from the true bonded pair. And a sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? A life. Morgwyn's eyes glittered. Blood magic always demands balance. To restore what was taken, something of equal value must be given. Whose life? Mine would suffice, but I suspect you'd rather find another option." She laughed at their expressions. "There may be alternatives, artifacts of power that could substitute for a life force, but finding one quickly enough," she shrugged. "That would be your problem, not mine." Fenrik turned away, his hand finding Seren's. Through the broken place where their bond should have been, she felt nothing, but his grip was warm and solid and real. "We find another way," he said quietly. "I won't build our happiness on another death, even hers." "The archive," Corvin spoke up suddenly. "The Royal Archive contains records of every magical artifact in Valdris. If something exists that could substitute for a life force, it would be documented there." "Then we search the archive." Fenrik's jaw set with determination. "Tonight." Morgwen laughed again. "So noble, so romantic. It won't matter in the end, you know. Even if you restore your little bond, the pack will never accept her. The other kingdoms will never respect you. You've destroyed your own reign for a woman who will always be seen as less than—" "Silence her," Fenrik commanded. Guards stuffed a cloth into Morgwen's mouth and dragged her away. In the quiet that followed, Seren leaned into Fenrik's side, exhausted and overwhelmed, but somehow still standing. "The archive," she said. "Lead the way." The Royal Archive was a labyrinth of ancient texts and forgotten knowledge. Seren, Fenrik, and Corvin searched through the night, pulling dusty volumes from shelves that hadn't been touched in decades. The information they needed had to exist somewhere, a magical artifact powerful enough to substitute for a life in blood magic. Dawn approached before Seren found it. "Here." She pulled a crumbling scroll from a bottom shelf. "The Heartstone of Valdris. It says it was created centuries ago to contain the life force of a dying queen who wanted to protect her descendants. It's been in the royal vault ever since." Fenrik read over her shoulder, his eyes widening. "The vault beneath the throne room. I've never opened it. My father said the contents were too dangerous to disturb." "Dangerous how?" "He never said. But if this stone exists, if it can substitute for a life force in the ritual—" Fenrik was already moving. "It's worth the risk." They descended through passages that grew older and darker with each level. The vault door was sealed with locks that required the king's blood to open, a precaution that seemed almost prophetic now. Fenrik pressed his palm to the ancient stone. Light flared. The door groaned open. Inside, dust motes danced in the air, illuminated by the faint glow of magical objects arranged on pedestals throughout the chamber. Weapons, jewels, artifacts of every description. And in the center, on a pedestal of black marble, sat a stone that pulsed with inner light. Red as heart's blood, warm as living flesh, the Heartstone. Seren approached it reverently. Even from a distance, she could feel the power radiating from it, ancient and patient, and somehow alive. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's our answer." Fenrik reached for the stone. The moment his fingers touched it, the vault shook. "Fenrik!" Seren spun. Figures poured through the vault door, wolves she didn't recognize, armed and armored, their eyes cold with purpose. "The remaining council loyalists," Corvin snarled, drawing his sword. "They must have followed us." There were at least 20 of them, against 3. "Give us the Omega," the leader demanded, "and the stone. The king can live. He's still useful as a puppet once we control his bond. But she dies, and the restoration ritual never happens." "Over my dead body," Fenrik said. "That can be arranged." They attacked. The vault became chaos. Steel rang against steel. Wolves shifted mid-combat, tearing at each other with claws and fangs. Seren pressed herself against the central pedestal. The Heartstone clutched to her chest, watching Fenrik fight like a force of nature. He was magnificent, terrible, unstoppable. But there were too many. A wolf broke through the line, lunging for Seren. She slashed with her dagger, catching him across the face, but his momentum carried him into her. They crashed to the ground, his weight crushing the breath from her lungs. Siren! Fenrik's roar shattered something inside her, not her resolve, not her courage. Something else, something that had been sleeping. Heat exploded from her chest. The heartstone blazed like a sun against her skin, and suddenly, impossibly, she felt it. A thread, golden and fierce, stretching between her and Fenrik. The bond. Not restored. Not complete. But there, flickering like a candle in a storm, fighting to reignite. Power surged through her. Siren didn't understand it, didn't question it. She simply let it flow, let the Heartstone's energy merge with the desperate need to protect her mate, her child, herself. Fire erupted. Not literal fire. Something more primal. A wave of force that blasted outward from her position, throwing enemies away like leaves in a hurricane. The council wolves screamed as they hit walls, floors, each other. When the energy faded, Siren stood in the center of the vault, the heartstone still blazing in her hands, her eyes glowing with borrowed power. Fenrik stared at her in awe. The stone, he breathed. It recognized you, chose you. Siren looked down at the artifact, which had dimmed to a gentle pulse that matched her heartbeat. I felt our bond. Just for a moment. It's not gone. Fenrik crossed to her, stepping over fallen enemies. It was never gone, just buried, suppressed. He cupped her face. You brought it back. The Heartstone helped. The Heartstone responded to you, to your love, to your will to survive. He kissed her forehead. You're extraordinary. Corvin appeared beside them, bleeding but alive. We need to move. More will come. Let them. Fenrik took Siren's hand. We have what we need. It's time to end this. They climbed out of the vault, the Heartstone cradled between them like a promise, and went to find Morgwen. The ritual awaited. The throne room had been cleared. Morgwen knelt in the center of a ritual circle, her chains replaced by magical bindings that prevented her from fleeing or interfering. Around her, symbols had been drawn in salt and ash, the framework of the reversal ritual she had been forced to teach them. Fenrik stood on one side of the circle, Nerissa stood on the other, her face pale but determined. And in the center, between them, Siren held the Heartstone. Begin, Fenrik commanded. Morgwen's voice rose, chanting words in an ancient tongue. The air grew heavy, the candles flickered. And slowly, painfully, Siren felt the magic begin to shift. The false bond between Fenrik and Nerissa became visible, a sickly green thread connecting them, pulsing with stolen power. It was wrong, corrupted, a perversion of the sacred connection between mates. Blood of the false bonded, Morgwen intoned. Nerissa cut her palm, letting drops fall into a silver bowl. Fenrik did the same. Blood of the true bonded. Siren sliced her own palm, adding her blood to the mixture. Fenrik crossed to her side, his hand covering hers, their blood mingling. And the sacrifice. The Heartstone flared. Heat and light poured from it, filling the circle, drowning out Morgwen's chanting. Siren felt the ancient queen's life force, preserved for centuries, finally finding its purpose. A sacrifice willingly made, long ago, for descendants she would never meet. The false bond shattered. Nerissa gasped, stumbling backward, the green thread dissolving into nothing. She looked at Fenrik with clear eyes for the first time. It's gone, she breathed. The connection. I can't feel it anymore. But Siren barely heard her, because something else was happening. The golden thread she had felt in the vault was strengthening. No longer flickering, but blazing, stretching between her and Fenrik with the force of a river breaking through a dam. Their bond. Their true, real, unbreakable bond. It snapped into place with a force that drove them both to their knees. Seren gasped as Fenrik's presence flooded through her. His love, his relief, his overwhelming joy, filling the hollow space that had ached for weeks. And she knew he felt the same from her. Seren, his voice was thick with tears. I feel you. I feel you again. I know. She was crying too. I feel you too. He pulled her into his arms, both of them kneeling in the center of the ritual circle, the heartstone cooling between them, its purpose fulfilled. Around them, the witnesses stood in stunned silence. Corvin, the loyal wolves, even Morgwen, still bound, watching with something that might have been awe. The bond was restored. They were whole again. 6 months later, the kingdom of Valdris had transformed. The corrupt council was gone, executed, imprisoned, or exiled. In its place, a new system emerged, with voices from every level of pack society represented. Fenrik had learned what happened when power consolidated in the hands of wolves who cared more about bloodlines than people. He would not make that mistake again. Nerissa had been pardoned and returned to her family, carrying no hard feelings. She had been a victim too, in her own way. The last Seren heard, she had found a genuine mate, a merchant from a southern territory who knew nothing of politics and loved her completely. Morgwen's fate had been harder to decide. In the end, they had stripped her magic and exiled her to the far reaches of the continent. Death would have been kinder, perhaps. But Seren had seen enough death. And Seren herself? She stood in the royal nursery, watching Fenrik cradle their daughter in his massive arms. The baby was barely a week old, with her father's golden hair and her mother's gray eyes. She's perfect, Fenrik murmured, his voice softer than Seren had ever heard it. Absolutely perfect. She has your stubbornness, Seren teased. Wouldn't come out until she was good and ready. That's your stubbornness, not mine. Is that so? He looked up at her, his eyes filled with so much love that it stole her breath. Through their bond, she felt the same emotion echoing back tenfold. I never thanked you, he said quietly. For what? For running. He shook his head at her surprised expression. If you hadn't run, I never would have known the depths of the conspiracy against us. I would have been controlled, manipulated, never understanding why my own pack turned against our bond. I ran because I was heartbroken. You ran because you survived. He crossed to her, the baby nestled between them. You've always been a survivor, Seren, from the moment I pulled you out of that river. And now, he kissed her softly. Now we survived together. The nursery was quiet except for their daughter's soft breathing. Outside, the kingdom continued its healing, slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. There would be more challenges ahead. There always were. But standing here, with her mate beside her and their child in his arms, Seren knew one thing with absolute certainty. She had run from heartbreak and found her way home. And home, true home, was not a place. It was him. It was them. It was the bond that had refused to die, no matter what darkness tried to sever it. And it would last forever.